All in favour? Carried. Councillors, I've also had the officers ask if we can deal at the front of the meeting with 7.1, which is the end of year position and the re-provisions, because we've got a large cast of officers that are in attendance for that, and it makes sense that if we can get through it, we can let them get on with their day. So does anybody have any issues with that? Excellent. 7.1 it shall be. We do need to move to closed because it does involve the budget. Moved Councillor Gates, seconded Councillor Pauline Young. All in favour? And with that, we will move to closed. So I'm going to leave you to polish that up. So by the time we get to 7.1, we will just deal with it in open.
Sure.
And we'll go back to Councillor Pauline Young. You had unstarred 6.1. Oh, Jackie, this might be a you question.
It's on the capital, sorry, I'm through the chair, Jackie, on page 27 of our agenda, it's the capital program expenditure progress percentage. And on there we see our portion of the year lapsed, and with waste management, it's way over the line and it's 33.6%. And I was just wondering why with waste it's where that's sitting. So? Land purchase, that's it, I couldn't see it in there, so I just, yeah, it's an integrated recycling enterprise. Thank you. Yeah.
Questions, Councillor
That
Young?
was the entirety.
Excellent. Would you like to move that item?
Happy to move it.
And Councillor Darren Taylor would like to second it, and we're all going to vote on it. All in favour? And it's carried. Thank you. 6.2. Was myself, and I had a question in regards to the Helensvale pedestrian tunnel project, and I don't. Yep. No, this is not that tunnel. But that's very. No, so this is a pedestrian tunnel that links Westfield to the Coles, and it's been put forward as a safety improvement project of $348,000 for CCTV cameras, and I'd just like to understand what that actually looks like, because that seems like some really expensive camera work.
Thanks for that. Thank you for the question, Councillor. So it is a safety camera network program. We've had numerous reports over the years, as you'd be aware, of bad behaviours, graffiti, etc., occurring in that underpass.
Yep.
So it is positioning cameras on there to add into our permanent CCTV network.
And how do we get to 350,000?
It will be the cost of power connection, data connection, the camera itself, cameras itself.
Okay, so I'd be interested in seeing some detail. So, like,
We
I
can
don't have
provide
that. So that idea of improving that safety and the connectivity from the railway station through to the library makes sense. Don't have a problem. I just have a problem with potentially the quantum. So I'd like to just understand what that looks like.
I think in this particular case, the data feed distance is quite some way, as well as power. So again, when we see something which is more than it looks like, it's often the cost of the length of service provision that's driving that.
Right, yeah, okay. Okay, so I'm happy to move it. Councillor McDonald, are you excited about seconding that? Yeah, excellent. All in favour? Carried. Thanks, Elton. 6.3, so we have some late proposed changes to accommodate Councillor Hamill largely.
Thank you, Chair. I'm assuming our minute secretary has the suggested wording for the change to 6.3.
And so, Councillor Curtis, on page 45, there's a project in Paradise Point where there's a reallocation of funds. I don't know if anybody has spoken to you about that. My guess is that it's something that's coming trundling down from Councillor Caldwell's era. But if you have any questions, you can either raise them directly with the officers or today?
So very quickly, Mr Chair, in printing the report from its draft to the final version, there was an item drop off the report, which is funding towards a community event. So this change, the recommendation adds that back in. And then it also seeks to remove an item where, after further discussion with officers, we want to revisit if there's a better plan that might be a more cost-effective option. So removes an item off page 44, being the shelter and seating proposal, and adds a community event funding element that sadly got dropped during draft to final document coming out.
And I'm assuming that that's led by the state schools P&C.
It is, yes.
Yep. And do you know if it competes with any other Festival of Lights at the same weekend?
No,
Because I
so
know-
they've purposely made sure they've actually got it before the rest of them, and they're working with the other providers. So no, it doesn't compete with any other ones.
Okay.
So can I just check, is there more to this? Because I see this.
Yeah, I think Councillor
Yeah, okay.
Taylor's had a chop
That's
at
right.
it as well.
So my two are in there, and Councillor Taylor's got one there too.
We're going to have Matt coming out shortly on debut, but no. So you're happy with your amendments, Councillor Taylor? If you can scroll up. So it's on Chevron, 35,000?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yep.
Rightio. So let's just slowly scroll down so we can just make sure that there's nothing else tricky that Councillor Taylor's trying to do, you know? So you're removing some shelter and seating to fund Councillor Taylor's Chevron event.
I took it all from his table chairs in the first place.
Ooh, edgy. Rightio. So that sounds, Councillor Gates. What's that, sorry?
Why are these coming to
I'm
governance?
assuming it's because we're accommodating them late for, at a request from the councillor support lead so that we can get them in on time.
Can someone explain why? I've never.
So otherwise they've got to wait until, because they clearly didn't get them in for the lifestyle meeting, and otherwise they'll be out. And it looks like Mark's here. Looks like Matt's out. Matt?
Through you, Mr Chair, it is a cycle of committees, Councillor Gates, so exactly what you said.
It's just
That's the
because of
understanding.
So
timing.
otherwise they've got to
Timing.
wait 6 weeks.
Okay.
And
Is
we're
that the
the
answer,
last
Matt?
committee.
As part of budget adoption, all the funding moved into the OCEO, so they're not split across the different directorates anymore, so.
They'll always be coming here.
1st of July, they've been coming through GAF.
What a joy. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I hadn't realised.
So I reckon Councillor Hamill's moved that, and I reckon Councillor Taylor has seconded it. Councillor Hamill, did you want to speak to that? Councillor Taylor, you're happy? Excellent. All in favour? Carried. Now we're motoring. 6.4, Councillor Gates. You're up.
Well, that was my question on page 48. That was where I had the Botanic Gardens query
Right.
raised.
And
So it's been done.
So move Councillor Gates.
Sorry.
Seconded Councillor Pauline Young. All in favour? Carried. Sarah, you're out for 6.5, which is the draft annual report. There are 3 proposed changes.
So through you, Mr Chair, following audit yesterday, we did brief audit councillors yesterday on Friday. You would have seen an email from me on Friday afternoon, what we've had to do because of the timing again. So we had to wait for the financials to go through audit yesterday. There was a few comments and feedback that came through audit committee yesterday, so we'll update those. What we then have to do is update it today and then we will recirculate on Wednesday. Sarah, is that still the plan?
Yes, it is.
We've just had to do that to make sure that the annual report that you get on Thursday at full council has the signed, most up-to-date statements, and then also the changes. There's a few changes from Audit and Risk Committee yesterday. We won't have that until Wednesday, but we'll send that out. And what we're proposing to do, Mr Chair, on Thursday at full council is do another round of amendments which are similar, which will have that updated. So very similar to what we did last committee with Karen, Revenue Services, Karen's ones, where we just did an update, then we did an update. So sorry, it's a bit confusing, but that's the best way that we could do it, and the easiest.
So we were suggesting a change for section 1.7, which would be additional text added under, so on page 104 of our agenda, we reference the fact that we have lost Councillor Caldwell to higher duties at the federal member for Fadden, but we don't reference the fact that we've picked up Councillor Shelley Curtis. So I think that we should do that in the report. Councillor Gates.
I had a question too, given the wording and given the fact that this report is being issued after the end of the financial year. So quite recognise that this represented last financial year. But in terms of Councillor Bailden Lumsden, should there be any sort of notation within that? Because as it says here, serves the people of division, I simply ask that question, whether we need to make any sort of notation.
So the director suggested we might take that on notice and make sure that we get appropriate advice.
I think that would be good.
So the State Minister has clearly made a decision. We just would need to be mindful that any wording that we put in the annual report reflected the decision of the state government in that space. So,
Thank you. Happy with that.
so the second change in the financial outcome summary, which is B, if we could just scroll down to CB, Luke. So from memory, that was just about aligning comments in the report so that they were consistent. And then C was in relation to, there is a note to the accounts regarding the councillor, the expense of the councillor's vehicles, which is on page 182. And Councillor Peter Young is the only councillor that doesn't take up the allowance for the motor vehicle. And so in the draft, he's seen as having a zero total expense because he doesn't receive the vehicle allowance. But there's a note in the draft in regards to him not being provided the allowance, but he is provided a motor vehicle. So this would, as a change to the bottom note, would reflect the cost of the city providing a fully serviced vehicle to Councillor Peter Young. I spoke to Councillor Peter Young yesterday afternoon in regards to it, and he didn't have a problem with the note because he felt that it was a fair reflection of things. So I'm happy to move that item. Seconded Councillor Pauline Young. And all in favour? And just like that, it was carried. Thank you, Sarah. 6.8, Councillor Pauline Young, Waste Services Budget Review.
Thanks, Chair. And it was just, again, to do with waste services, and I know Jackie's highlighted that with us going through, is that the diminishing amounts of funds that are going over to the reserve, it's resulted in a loss of retained earnings of 6.1 million, and the net impact is a decrease of 5.2 million in funds transferred to the waste management reserve. Is this this is in the conclusion on this too, but it's within the report as well. Do you imagine this is going to be a trend going forward with, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, Karen, I'm sorry, but if this is sort of going to be the trend, it needs to be something that we're very aware of, and I know what Jackie's just shared with us, but with what's happening in that waste space, like we've been through that with our transport side of things within the city, and we know we're going to be hit in 24, 25 or 25, 26 with the waste. I think we need to be very aware of.
Through the chair, as Jackie outlined earlier and was discussed, there's a fair bit of work being undertaken at the moment to assess the waste financial position. We're working through all of that, and we'll be presenting information back to council in September. So that'll be providing you with the most current and up-to-date information.
Okay. So Councillor Young, did you just move that? And I thought that I'd seconded it. Oh, so Councillor Hamill seconded it, sorry. So all in favour? And carried it is. Councillors, that leaves us with 6.9, which is the retirement of policies. And then there'll be 6.2, which is the consolidation. Okay. And did you want to make sure Jackie's ready for 7.1? So, Paul, if you could just maybe just give us a quick, we don't need a presentation, but just a quick overview of why we've split the two things, yeah?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I might throw to Vanessa to do that because she's probably best positioned.
Deftly played, well
Through
done.
delegation.
So,
Thank you, Vanessa. I might introduce Vanessa Green as well, who heads our 1CP workstream for policy, governance and delegation.
Yeah, thank you. So my first question is, how many policies do we have?
Yep.
As part of the 1CP project review?
Certainly. All up, Council has 134 policies that are under review through 1CP at the moment. 84 of those policies are council policies adopted by council. 50 of those policies are organisational policies and generally relate to matters around staff, etc.
So over the coming period of time, there's an intention to bring forward policies to be retired, policies to be consolidated and new policies if required. Is that the case?
Yes. Through the chair, from this meeting forward, we're looking at bringing a suite of 3 reports through the Governance and Finance Committee. The first report will be policies that can be directly retired. The second report will be those policies that we've looked at that can be consolidated, so where we have 2 or 3 light policies that can be brought into one policy position. And the third report will be policies that are a direct review from the current policy position to reflect where council is today.
And ultimately, we've got a whole host of policies, some of which are redundant because of legislation itself covers them. So, so today we really deal with a couple of, I'm going to say the low-hanging fruit for the retirement, and then we've got a consolidation. So, councillors, are there any questions in regards to 6.9 being the recommendation? Councillor McDonald?
It's just in relation to the garage sales. So how will that be addressed? Because that was brought in because, and I know that you mentioned in here about, you know, businesses, but that was brought in because you had certain members of the community using garage sales as a business. So how will that be addressed if we don't have a policy on it and the residents know what the rules are in relation to garage sales?
Certainly, through the chair, Council has no way of actually regulating the number of garage sales that are held in the community. If council receives complaints that a particular resident is potentially operating a business from their residence, it will be referred to our development assessment, city planning team, and assessed in accordance with the rules for home-based businesses under the city plan. So that's the regulation or the legislation by which we can actually monitor garage sales in the community. Likewise, if the complaint that we received was in relation to parking or inappropriate signage, it would be addressed through the enforcement opportunities that we have through local laws or relevant legislation relating to those matters.
Be interesting. Thank
So the
you.
policy itself provides no benefit to the city in terms of enforcement, this current policy?
Correct, yes. We have no way of enforcing the number of garage sales held within the community.
Right. And then since the introduction of the policy, there's been the invention of the internet and the use of ultimately that type of distribution channel for people trading goods. So the actual use of the policy is reduced considerably. Is that?
Through the chair, correct. The advice that we've received from staff is it's actually not a policy that's regularly used to monitor those types of activities in the community.
And is it an outward-facing policy that residents are able to see online? And do we know how many times it's actually been accessed?
It is one of the, through the chair, sorry, is one of the least accessed policies that we have on the website, but I'm happy to bring back a correct number.
Thank you. Councillor Hamill.
Mr Chair, given that I suspect there's going to be a lot more of these proposed policies to be either completely deleted or consolidated, is there an opportunity before future rounds for maybe a briefing to be made available to councillors that are interested, given that there's a lot of history behind some of these policies, and maybe an opportunity for a briefing beforehand, especially on the ones where we're consolidating, that there might be a need to have the time to explain things through?
Yes, through the chair, most definitely. I think at the moment we've probably reviewed 70 of the 130 odd, of which most of those, plus an additional 30, 40, will be presented before Christmas. So more than happy to offer that briefing where appropriate. What we can do also is share offline of this meeting the schedule of when each of these items will be coming up through GAF. So you'll know when each of the items and policies will be presented through here.
Yeah. So if you share the schedule, that may trigger some interest. Does the schedule indicate which round the review may come through?
It will, through your chair it will.
So I think we might distribute the schedule, indicate when it's coming through, and give councillors the opportunity to opt into a briefing. Right. So, Councillor Tozer.
So my question is about the traffic calming devices policy. So I had a meeting the other day with one of the team that's devising what I think is a traffic calming devices guide.
Internal, yep.
Help me understand the difference between the policy that we have, just principally, and this guide. Is it going to be, how is it going to be referred to?
Through the chair, I haven't actually seen the guide, but I understand that it is a communication tool that enables the public to understand the types of traffic devices council is able to put in place, and what the advantages and disadvantages of those traffic devices are, but that's being done through the Transport and Infrastructure branch.
So how will that document be different to a policy? Or are we just saying that it won't really be that different? It's just an operational matter. We don't need actually an official policy.
Through the chair, I think with the policy position itself is it's actually not guiding the assessment or investigation process for whether or not we do install traffic calming devices. The tools that we use to assess and do those investigations against are actually the tools that are outlined, in the report, which are the Australian standards and the Queensland Tourism legislation and guidelines.
Yeah. All right, great, awesome, thank you.
Hamill, seconded Councillor Pauline Young. Is that your opening and close? That'll do. Yeah. All in favour? Carried. So that leaves us 6.10. So I actually have some questions in regards to the new proposed policy. So we're on page 379. So where it talks about names, number 8, infrastructure in parks such as amenity buildings, playgrounds, shade structures will not be named. So I know that, for example, the city has made a decision to name the lifeguard building down at Burleigh the Warren Young building. So would that be against the policy now? Yeah. So I just think will not be named is maybe a little bit too, and clearly a council decision can overturn any policy. Councillor Critchlow taught me that, but I just wonder whether or not in the actual wording we could maybe give some consideration of making that a little bit more gentle and flexible, because I think that we all represent areas of the city where it actually from time to time may make sense to be able to name a building, name any of those type of structures, and maybe even it needs to come through to council, for example, for that to happen. So I just wouldn't like to see the policy being used as a blunt instrument to say the policy doesn't allow us to do that, so therefore we're not going to entertain that idea. Councillor Gates?
The same with 9. I had a query about the last 2 words being "and supported," or whether there should just be a full stop after "considered." If you can explain to me what that means. Does that mean if every time the suggestion was made, council would be required to support, or would there be any discretion? On page 379.9.
And so that's item 9.
Through the chair, the intent is that the decision still rests with council. However, certainly happy to consider removing those 2 words.
So maybe remove "and supported," so names recognising. So the word used is Aboriginal cultural heritage. Is that the current wording of choice, or should it not say First Nations?
Through the chair, in my experience, that is the appropriate language to use, but I can certainly...
So I'd just like to check that. I've had a recent example where our cultural heritage unit advised an Indigenous artist that they didn't like the use of a particular word for a work of art, because they didn't feel, our heritage unit felt that it wasn't representative of Indigenous art, so it's extraordinary. So I just think we need to tread carefully there. I think it's an area that I don't have any problem with us being in that space, but I just think we need to make sure that we've got the right words. And then I had a question on 10, which was the renaming of city assets will only be considered when it can be demonstrated that the existing name is no longer appropriate, historical, geographical, or likely to cause distress to members of the community. So is that the existing name causing distress, or the change of the name causing distress? And is this designed to pick up where there may be a request to do, for example, a change of a road name?
No, the intent is that it's referring to the existing name.
Yep. So are you able to give me an example? Yeah, of a park from a long time ago. Yeah, so there was
Park at Ormo that had to be renamed due to historical.
Well, so we can't chat about it. So there was a park named after a gentleman that had some penalties levied against him. And we don't have any benefit of
hindsight.
no, we don't have any benefit of being able to name people in this chamber, so we're not going to.
Of course. Sorry. I just
So if we're in state parliament, we would, but we can't. Councillor McDonald?
Thanks, Mr Chair. Number 7, memorials and plaques. How would that, like we've got the Jubilee plaques that are through the city.
Yep.
So how does that stand?
So essentially 7 talks about memorials and memorial plaques in our city assets will not be considered. We have a Jubilee walk which involves memorial plaques on our asset, you know, and likewise we have between here and our Blue Bridge, we've got plaques recognising our keys to the city holders, you know, so if you read 7 literally, it says that we won't consider them from now on, you know, so unless we do it through a council resolution, and inevitably we are told by city officers that policy doesn't allow us to do that, you know, so is that the heart of your question,
Yes.
Councillor McDonald?
Through the chair, so the policy doesn't apply retrospectively, so it won't apply to anything that's already in existence in the community. It's only from when it's adopted moving forward. I believe that is consistent with some of the wording that we had in our existing policies, but certainly happy to have a look at that.
So I wonder whether or not you just need to change it to be memorial plaques, which I think picks up the traditional policy of not allowing residents to name individual park benches. So I don't know what other councillors think, but I think if we just remove the words memorials and/or and just have memorial plaques, that will get to the heart of what the policy is actually trying to do. Well, I think it's memorial plaques. I think it was traditionally specifically about preventing people being able to name chairs and benches and all of that type of thing, unless we want to change our mind there. So I had a question in regards to 13A, which talks about parks to be named after their street or suburban location or nearby geographical feature. So we have lots of instances in this city where we've named parks after Gold Coasters, and I actually don't agree that all parks should be named after streets or suburban locations. I actually think that we should be able to be a bit flexible there, because I think that and I know that Councillor Betts was always dead against naming parks after people, but I think that it's actually a lovely tribute that we're able to give individuals to. A city asset, right? And then naming conventions is for 13A is parks to be named.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, I read 13A and thought, okay, that's a kind of a general principle, but on certain occasions, any city asset can be named after an individual or family posthumously, and that's how I read it, but maybe.
So if we wanted to add 14 to name a city asset, including parks, after an individual, that resolves it, but I just don't want to, again, I've had enough experience of officers interpreting policies exactly how they want to read them to know that it actually prevents us getting really good outcomes. And
Yeah.
so we've had the Kleinschmidt Family Park at Riverstone Crossing, which clearly reflects a long-standing family, you know, which we've named in the last 5 or 6 years. There was the Nicofrides Family Park at Broadbeach, which I think was well received. So I think we should have the ability to do it, but I don't want the policy to be able to be read slavishly to prevent it. So maybe.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
Yep.
Yep.
To name a city asset including parks after it.
Yep. No, we're good with that.
Keeps wanting to call the bridge after me as
terrified because the opening's fast approaching.
Would it be a bridge or a footpath after her?
Oh, it'd probably be a missing link.
So I think you may need to amend that recommendation to reflect the council adopts the naming of city assets policy with amendments. Yep. And if you could maybe circulate those minor amendments prior to the council. Moved. Seconded by Councillor Pauline Young. So I thank the officers for their efforts in trying to consolidate our policies. I am interested in making sure that our naming policy allows us to name city assets and parks after Gold Coasters that have made significant impacts on our community, and accept the fact that some assets can't be named after individuals until they are no longer with us on this mortal coil. So, Mark, you may have a Hamill Park in the north, but you will not be able to get a Gates Park for a considerable period of time.
Thank you, thank you.
I feel like a decision to council over rules any policy.
I look forward to you trying. Councillor Taylor? I haven't called for the vote yet, Councillor Taylor. Right, all in favour? Against? Carried. Unanimous. Thank you for that. So 7.1. Join the conga line. I don't know whether we need to go to close for 7.1, because I reckon that we've discussed what we had to do in closed and we've got some minor amendments. Jackie, have you prepared some words or are you asking me to wait? Councillors, 7.2, which was the workforce attraction and retention risk assessment, does anybody need to have a discussion in regards to that? It's on page 665.
I'll ask a question while you're waiting, through you to the director, if I may.
You may.
Will at some point in time we have an understanding of where retention incentives have been offered?
Through you, Mr Chair, I might just ask Nadine, who's our Chief People Officer, to come and answer that. I think that has been spoken about before and I'm pretty sure our CEO did commit to that, but I'll just... Nadine, are you able to... Are you talking about, would you like a broad overview of...
I just wondered if there was an intent to inform the council of how widely those retention incentives have occurred.
Did you hear the question, Nadine, or do you want me to... So Councillor Gates is just wanting to understand if we were going to more widely report in the future about incentives.
Sure. So through the chair, we had 106... Right.
Be general in our reply, it'd be appreciated.
Yeah. So 161 positions were identified in the retention program. We've had a 90% retention effectiveness rate, so it was a worthwhile program.
Great. Thank you. That's all. Thanks.
Rightio. Jackie? Hi. So, Jackie, I'm reading this as you're going to leave $300,000 in the Oxenford Pony Club?
No.
Okay, well, let's go. What are you doing?
There's two lines there for the Oxenford Pony Club, so there's 602 and 305. We just split it out for transparency. So if you could scroll down just a tad, please, to the updated table.
Okay, so I add the first one with the 22, that gets to a neat 23.
To your 23, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm happy to move that. Councillor Patterson, are you happy to second that? Welcome. Yeah, of course you can.
No, he's left.
Offline, it's fine.
Rightio. So there we go. So councillors, are there any questions in regards to the item? Excellent. So in that case, I've moved it. Councillor Patterson seconded it. We're all going to vote. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you for your attendance and your spirited bidding, Jackie.
Thanks.
7.2, Workforce Attraction and Retention Risk Assessment. Moved Councillor Gates, seconded Councillor Taylor. All in favour? Carried. Councillors, is there any general business you haven't talked to me about? Councillor Gates.
I don't wish to raise an item. I just seek that a review be undertaken of the attendance lists that front our agendas.
Yep.
I haven't
Okay.
looked at them all, but this one just needs to be amended.
Okay, and Director, is today our last meeting that you will be gracing us with? Right, so on behalf of all of the committee members, I want to thank you for your efforts whilst you've been shoehorned into your current role.
Thank you.
And I look forward to you taking on your new responsibilities back in the world of planning.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, we can get a cake. Yeah, some watermelon or something. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you to my team too. I mean, I've spoken to them all individually, but I think over the last year we've all pulled together and there's been a lot of change, but really proud of our team and what we've presented to you over the last year.
I see your city thanks you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
At 10:23, we pulled up stumps, and if anybody would like to come and have a free cup of coffee, I'm happy to buy that for them.